The deportation is the most tragic page in the history of the Crimean Tatars. It was the moral and physical destruction of a nation. While the best sons of this nation were dying at the front, the elderly, women and children were being forcefully deported to Central Asia and the Urals by train in cattle cars. As a result of this operation, more than 46.2% of people died. The Soviet government had been preparing to implement the program even before World War II, Crimea without Crimean Tatars. This became possible with the outbreak of hostilities between the USSR and Germany. The fact that the deportation operation had been prepared for several years is evidenced by the fact that in the spring of 1944, a secret NKVD order of April 13, 1944, was signed on measures to clear the territory of the Crimean Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic from anti-Soviet elements. Meanwhile, from April 11 to May 10, 1944, during the Crimean operation, the peninsula was completely liberated from the German occupiers. The population joyfully welcomed the Red Army soldiers. Crimea celebrated the victory and did not suspect what an inhuman tragedy was coming from the real traitors. The fate of the Crimean Tatar people had already been decided in advance. On May 10, Stalin had already signed an order to expel all Crimean Tatars from the territory of Crimea. That meant that the entire Crimean Tatar nation, from newborn babies to the elderly, were accused of collaboration. What motivated Stalin personally in those fateful for the Crimean Tatar people days? After all, the deportation was not caused by the random whim of this tyrant. It had a clear political purpose. It is possible that the undesirability of further residence of the Crimean Tatars in Crimea was dictated by the whim and self-interest of the country's top leadership. It turned out to be most convenient to accuse the whole nation of aiding the Germans. Information about the preparation of the barbaric action was kept secret. 32,000 NKVD soldiers were deployed to Crimea. An interesting fact is that a census began, but only among the Crimean Tatars. So, everything was ready. The thunder came early in the morning on May 18, 1944, almost simultaneously, at 4 a.m., all over Crimea. Groups of three led by sergeants, officers, and operatives broke into Crimean Tatar homes and announced, "In the name of Soviet power, for treason against the motherland, you are being evicted to other regions of the Soviet Union." They gave 15 minutes to gather some belongings. Someone managed to take something valuable, while others confusedly grabbed some trinkets. Some were told that they were being taken to be shot and had forbidden them to take anything at all. People who were confused and did not understand what was happening were loaded into trucks and taken to the nearest railway station. And there were wagons waiting for them that were used to transport cattle. Many contemporaries of the deportation testify that seriously ill Crimean Tatars were not taken to the trains. They were physically eliminated. Those who found the courage to resist deportation were also shot. The operation was completed by 4 p.m. on May 20th. 67 trains with Crimean Tatars were sent to the east, to Central Asia and the Urals. According to the National Movement of Crimean Tatars, 238,500 people were deported, of whom 205,900 were children and women. During the period of deportation and the first years of exile, the Crimean Tatar people lost 46.2% of their total number. Given the consequences of this tragedy, we can fully speak of a deliberate policy of genocide against the Crimean Tatar people. What about the Red Army soldiers, Crimean Tatars, who returned to their native Crimea in 1945 with victory? As soon as they entered their native land, they were given exactly 24 hours to leave for Central Asia. These were the consequences of the tragedy of May 18, 1944.